Sur 135. Ah, mais comment ça que ça sonne sur ton téléphone? Y a-tu mis le call, ont-tu mis le call forward? OK, c'est beau. OK, ben, OK, bye. Oui, je vais être capable, je pense. Ils veulent. Ah non, je ne pourrais pas le faire. Je vais le faire dans le bureau après. Il faut tout que je le fasse dans le bureau. C'est parce que j'appelle George direct, ça sonne sur. D'après moi, ils n'ont pas fait le. Olivia, bonjour, c'est Jacques, ça va? Peux-tu regarder si tu me vois au 135B et si tu m'entends? Merci.
Deux minutes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tu m'entends bien, Olivia? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Check, sound check, conférence de presse au 135B. OK, merci. Bye.
Heads up. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Brian Masse, a Member of Parliament for Windsor West. I'm here today with Janet Sumner from the World Wildland Leagues and also Chief Mary Duckworth to talk about conservation, a specific area in my riding called the Ojibwe Shores, and an exciting opportunity for Canadians to deal with climate change. First, start with a little bit of preamble for Janet Sumner. She's with the Wildlands League of Canada. It's one of our preeminent organizations. It was formed in 1968. They've been influential in Ontario and across Canada in several pieces of legislation. For our area, we also know them being part of the creation, which is one of the most beautiful places, I would argue, in Canada, but also in Ontario, Algonquin Provincial Park. So I'm going to turn it over to Janet, and then following that, Chief Mary Duckworth from Caldwell First Nations. This is an exciting story for all of Canada. We have a return of First Nations to an area that I represent that goes back to French settlement. Prior to that, had a rich history, and Caldwell First Nations are really reclaiming part of that history in our community, not only just the Windsor area, but up to Leamington. And this is an exciting opportunity as well for them to be inclusive for part of what we need is our future. Our future really includes our Aboriginal First Nations, not only as part of our continued community history, but most importantly with our future. So Chief Duckworth is here as well to give comments with regards to an exciting opportunity for Canada to deal with climate change, protecting endangered species, and of course, adding some green space, which is much needed. So please, over to Janet.
Thank you, Brian, MP Masse, and thank you, Chief. Today, as everybody knows, my name is Janet Sumner. I'm the Executive Director at Wildlands League. Globally, we have a climate emergency and an extinction crisis. 30% of the solution on climate, though, is nature-based, and 100% of the solution on the extinction crisis is actually from nature. Nature's diversity is the key to its resilience. Every breath we take is filtered by natural processes in oceans, lakes, grasslands. The fresh water we drink has to be cleaned by flora and fauna, and as it trickles through vegetation and soils and wetlands and rivers. Every 2x4 in our homes comes from nature. And wild pollinators are necessary for most of our food crops. Yet despite this, more than 200 wildlife species are in danger of being lost in Ontario. And in southern Ontario, it's worse. There's a naturally occurring high number of species in southern Ontario, but also an enormous amount of pressure from human development. And there is less than 1% of the land in regulated protection. This makes southern Ontario an extinction hotspot. Can we fix it? Yes. We can give nature the room that it needs. We need a strategy for southern Ontario where we protect the remaining natural areas that are important for nature, restore what we need to, and then connect these patches into a network of protection. For Windsor, that could mean uniting the current protection parcels of remnant tall grass prairie under a national park banner, a national urban park. There are over 160 provincially rare species here, more than anywhere else in Ontario. It's actually a hotspot within a hotspot. That's why I, Janet Sumner, who's a native of Southern Ontario, but also the Executive Director of Wildlands League, why we are very proud to support this initiative in Windsor. Tallgrass prairie is the most endangered ecosystem in Canada, but it's also the most resilient to warming climate. It is also one of the best natural sponges for extreme wet weather, a fact not lost in a city where flood insurance is almost impossible to obtain and basement flooding is an annual event. That makes protecting nature in Windsor a way to fight climate change, but also address the extinction crisis. We need a nature strategy for southern Canada. Let's start where the extinction crisis is the most extreme and give nature some room. Let's start in Windsor. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. And Janet is wonderful to work with. Not only Wildland League's giving us good advice, but also fun to work with different environmental groups. And that's the exciting opportunity with the Ojibwe Shores. And I'm going to lay out, for those who aren't aware, where exactly I'm talking about, and the exciting opportunity for our country. We are talking about a piece of property along the Detroit River that is 33 acres that is owned by the Windsor Port Authority. It was to be actually bulldozed and leveled. Fortunately, our community came together to stop that from happening, and it is now home to over 100 endangered species and links with other significant properties. We are also building a new border crossing, something I've been involved in since 1998, called the Gordie Howe International Bridge, next to this. So we have a welcoming spot to create what I would argue for is a national urban park. But we need the protection of Ojibwe Shores first, and so we're asking that the land be transferred from the Windsor Port Authority, from the Department of Transportation, to that of to Parks and Recreation. So at least we preserve it and make sure it's going to be there. The Port Authority in the past had either asked for financial contributions from City of Windsor residents, something that I don't think is appropriate. We own the land as public property, and paying double for our environment or triple doesn't make sense this day and age. And more importantly, it's an opportunity for our local community to get engaged in how to deal with climate change in their own backyard. It's also a part where Canada, we fit into it nice and neat with the entrance and gateway to one of the busiest border crossings in the world. And in fact, right now our border crossing has about 40,000 people that traverse back and forth vehicle-wise every single day. So it's going to be a very busy area. Now, next to it, Ojibwe Shores, is a Black Oak Heritage Park, which is owned by the City of Windsor. There's a Ojibwe Prairie Complex, which is owned by the Province of Ontario. There's the Tall Grass Prairie area, the Spring Garden Anse. All these pieces of properties are owned by the municipal, provincial, or federal government or an agency of the government and can be united under a national urban park. So we're here to continue to push for that, and in that context, which is really, truly exciting, we've seen a number of people come forward to say, yeah, we can do this. It's an opportunity to be a showcase not only just for our region, but also the rest of the country. I think a lot of communities are struggling about how we can deal with climate change, how it involves you as a person and your family, and this is an exciting opportunity where you can just transfer the property from one ministry to another, and that's what we're asking for. So I have Chief Mary Duckworth next, who's going to bring greetings on behalf of Caldwell Nations and a little bit about their history with the property, and also a really important part of this discussion that's come about. So this is a naturally occurring experience in terms of creating a national urban park, but most importantly, it's also a very good story for Canadians and a community that deserves our attention.
Bonjour, I am the elected chief of Caldwell First Nation. I'm honored to be here today to speak about the project. What I wanted to start off by saying is Caldwell First Nation is the most southern First Nation in Canada. We are located at Point Pelee Island, where our traditional lands were. We have settled a land claim, and we have returned back to our traditional territory, and we're working from that context. In that context, what we see are the environment that's being affected by the heat in southwestern Ontario, the loss of the species that are in danger, and the animals that are endangered, as well as the fish. So from a lens that we have, Caldwell First Nation has worked very hard with Point Pelee National Park to build a really strong relationship to ensure that we are protecting the environment. We have also worked with the IRCA, which is the Essex Region Conservation Authority, on projects of conservation also. And what draws us to this project is the fact that it is the last remaining natural shoreline of the Detroit River, which encompasses our traditional territory. And being able to conserve what we have, knowing the environment and knowing the population in southwestern Ontario, is important for us to come together and look at how we can conserve the land, how we can protect the land, but at the same time share it. All of us sharing it together is why I'm here. We're in a time of reconciliation, and I think it's important right now with this issue, this project, whatever you want to call it. I call it life that's happening, where we can come together, develop a plan, and have great solutions for everybody. So I say miigwech for the invitation today and the good work that's being done.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. I'll conclude with this. We have an online petition that will be starting, www.brianmasse.ca is where it's at, where we're asking people to sign and support this initiative. This is an exciting opportunity. I know that the pieces of property that we're talking about may not be the largest in Canada, but they actually have some of the most important species that are at risk. And this is one of those things where small things really do matter. we could be an easy example of moving forward on the issue of climate change, creating greener spaces for our citizens, and also improving the image of Canada. Across from this area is Zug Island, a notorious Detroit area, basically chemical island, that's being shut down, and its future is unknown, but we know that we can control this by improving our local area. I'll conclude with this as well, too, is that next to this piece of property is Sandwichtown. Sandwichtown is the oldest European settlement west of Montreal, and it has some of the biggest challenges with regards to child poverty, in terms with immigration and new Canadians, and a whole series of things that are seeing a refurbishment and also a rebirth. This is very much part of it. It should be a gem in our country, and it's cutting that direction. So we're hopeful the minister will take this advice, will take this spirit, and we're asking for you, if you care about the environment, you care about creating spaces and being active, we're just asking you to join our campaign to get this done, because we believe it's important. Again, small things do matter, and this one is certainly important for not only our country, but also my community. So thank you very much to Chief Duckworth and to Janet Sumner from Wildland Leagues. We appreciate for coming today, and we most importantly appreciate your support in this project. Again, in politics, there's very few times where things can be fun. This is fun, and let's get some results. Thank you very much.